Hey guys, Cloudy Haze back for another video. I figured I would make an updated gold making guide that will help you guys prepare for the new expansion and potentially find new ways to make gold. This is going to be an in-depth guide for all angles of gold making. I was going to make a few different videos on this topic, but I decided to put them all into one video. This gold making guide I'm about to share with you guys consists of old farms, new farms, and everything in between. I've spent countless hours farming every dungeon in the game, every old raid, every new raid, every farm I could possibly find on YouTube dating back 5 years, and searching all over the internet. With that said, a lot of the guides online are great, but a lot of them are outdated. So I'm going to share with you guys all the farms that I've come across that seem to still work. In this guide, we will be covering transmog farming, raw gold farming, class-specific farms, how to make gold in the auction house, and how to build up your own inventory as well as other gold making methods. This guide will be broken down into sections in case you're looking for something particular. The first thing we're going to talk about is gold making add-ons. Having proper add-ons and having them properly set up is crucial to being successful as a gold maker. The first add-on you will need is TSM, Trade Skill Master. This add-on is a staple to making gold in World of Warcraft. It does everything from telling you the price of an item based on market values to helping you post your auctions on the auction house. This is a must-have add-on. It does take a bit of time though to set this add-on up properly. You will need to head to their website and follow the instructions in order to set it up. I will have a link to their website in the description. They give you a pretty good step-by-step guide on how to set it up. You will need to also download the TSM desktop app in order for TSM to work properly. Another add-on you will want to pair with TSM is the Loot Appraiser add-on. Loot Appraiser add-on will tell you how much gold you're making while you're out farming. It basically tells you how much gold you're making per hour, and it'll notify you when something of value drops. It's definitely a must-have add-on. As long as you have those two add-ons, you can begin making gold. There are a lot more add-ons out there that are nice to have for gold making, and I will post all the add-ons I use to make gold in the description below in case you want to download a few more and try them out. Let's talk about making gold. The first section we are going to cover is raw gold farms. Most of you are trying to farm gold to get ready for the expansion, or perhaps to pay for your monthly subscription. Whatever it is, we all want to make easy gold, and we want to do it with the least amount of effort in the least amount of time, right? Well, this method isn't really technically a gold farm, but it is a good way to make gold if you do it every day. There are daily quests and dragon riding races throughout the different zones of dragonflight that you can complete for gold rewards. I'm sure most of you already know this, but just in case you didn't realize how much gold you can actually make if you are consistently getting these done. If you don't have the add-on World Quest Tracker, I recommend getting it. It organizes all of the daily quests into a convenient list for us. These world quests can reward us with anywhere from 500 to 1,000 gold just for completing one quest. Most of the quests are pretty simple to do and take little to no time to complete. If you zoom out on your map, the add-on will make a nice list. You can click on them and it'll track it for you. That way you can easily find which one you want to do next. If you also look, you will see there are 8 different dragon rider races on the map. Each one of these races will reward you with a racer's purse, which will contain over 500 gold just for completing the race. You don't need to do it fast or do any of the advanced races. Just simply complete the course. These are very easy to do and they don't take much time, and they're kind of fun to do as well. Between world quests that reward gold and dragon riding races, there is a whole lot of gold that you can earn here, guys. We are looking at over 8,000 gold in about an hour's time. These quests reset every few days, so you can do these at least twice a week. Also, we can do them on our alts for double the intake. Let's say we do these races and quests that reward gold twice a week on 2 tunes for 10 weeks in a row. Well, let's do some quick math. That's 8,000 gold twice per week, that's 16,000. Times 2 characters, that's 32k per week. Then times that by 10 weeks, that's 320,000 gold. That's 1/3 of a million gold just for doing dailies and flying around doing races that take 1 minute to complete. Completing these quests and races are definitely one of the best sources of raw gold out there right now for time versus reward. Get these done, they don't take much effort or time. Next up, we have another raw gold farm, the Motherlode Dungeon, located in Zuldazar and Zandalar, the Battle for Azeroth expansion. Most of you probably already know this farm, but I just wanted to bring it up because it's still very viable. This farm can easily net you 4 to 5,000 gold in 30 minutes of time, and you don't really need much gear for this. As long as you're over 400 item level, you can do this farm no issue. For Alliance, you head to Zabala, And for Horde, you head to this location here on my screen. The best way to farm this dungeon is pull every single bit of trash before the first boss, but don't pull the first boss though. Some of the mobs will try to stun you, just keep moving and ignore it the best you can. Gather up all the mobs and AoE them down. You will want to also kill the yellow mobs that you won't aggro, so on your way out of the dungeon just kill them since they also give gold. You will get green BOEs from killing the trash in here. We will be vendoring these greens. You could sell them in the auction house for more gold if you wanted to, but it would take a bit more time, and they don't sell for a whole lot. So I just vendor everything I get from the dungeon. You can just follow my route here as seen on my screen. I just run around gathering up all the mobs. This only takes me about 3 minutes per run. If you're a bit slower, it could take up to 5 minutes a run, which is also fine. Just make sure to keep the runs under 6 minutes. We can do 10 runs per hour, which is the dungeon cap per hour. So if each run is kept under 6 minutes, that means that we can continue to farm this dungeon as much as we want without any restrictions. If you're having trouble while trying to gather the mobs because you're getting stunned, my suggestion is try to be a bit faster, or maybe change your route up a little bit. If you have to, you can do the dungeon in 2 pulls. Just keep it under 6 minutes as I said and you're golden. The best run I've done was about 2.5 minutes. What I do is usually come in here and do about 10 runs in about 40-45 minutes and then I move on to something else. So we have another raw gold farm that's also in Zuldazar and Zandalar, the Battle for Azeroth expansion. We will be farming all the old BFA LFRs for raw gold. Head to Dazar'alor and head inside. That's the main city. Upstairs to the left, you will find a guy called Epu, a little Tortolan turtle looking guy. At this guy, you can queue up to all the old wings of the BFA LFRs. I'm going to give you a quick rundown on which ones are best to run. Basically, which ones will take the least amount of time since they all reward a similar amount of gold. You could farm every single one of them if you wanted to, but I personally recommend skipping a few that have long RP cutscenes and a lot of walking. That's up to you, of course. Just a note, we will be vendoring all the items that drop inside of these raids. That's how we will be making our gold. Each boss will make you around 250 gold, give or take. So a LFR wing with 4 bosses that only takes a few minutes to run will net you around 1,000 gold. That's pretty good if you ask me. One last tip before we begin. While you're inside of any LFR instance, there is a little eye at the bottom right of your screen. If you click this eye, you can port in and out of a dungeon quickly. Alright guys, now I'm going to walk you through the best route and method for farming these BFA LFRs. First, you want to run Halls of Containment. Kill the first boss, then right-click the eye to port out of the instance, then port back in. By doing this, you're able to skip the elevator RP and save over a minute of time. Now kill the second boss, then leave. The last boss takes over 2 to 3 minutes to kill. You could kill it, but that's up to you. I recommend just skipping to the next one. Next, queue up to the Crimson Descent and clear the entire wing. Just mount up and run to each boss. Don't stop to kill each pack of trash. Kill the trash while killing the bosses, saves a bit of time. Next, queue up to Heart of Corruption and clear the entire wing as well. This wing consists of 2 bosses. Basically clear the entire Uldir raid, but skipping 1 boss in the first wing. On the last boss, Gahun, one tip for doing the orb. When the encounter starts, run over to the left side of the room if you're facing the boss and grab the orb. Then make your way through the cyst down the path on the side. Do not use your extra action button or you will break the orb. When you get to the end of the path, click the button on the wall. By doing this, it'll make the boss come out so you can kill him. If you use your extra action button, you will break the orb and you'll have to do it again. Next, we will be queuing for the defense of Dazar'alor. Mount up and head to the first boss. Kill him and leave the instance. We won't be doing any others in this raid as they take too much time to complete. We now want to queue up for Crucible of Storms and kill the 2 bosses in there. These 2 bosses are pretty straightforward, just press W and kill. Next, we're going to queue up to the Grand Reception. When you join the raid, just run straight to the first boss and don't bother trying to gather up all the trash in the room. Just kill the first boss and leave the instance. Then quickly queue up to the Depths of the Devoted. Clear the entire wing. On the second boss, he will run down to a lower platform. Don't get knocked off as you might die, and make sure to interrupt him before he finishes his cast or you die. Next, we will queue up to the Circle of Stars and clear the entire wing, which is only 2 bosses. After that, we will queue up for Halls of Devotion and kill all 4 bosses. In this wing, it's a bit confusing on where to go, so just open your map so you can see where you're going. You can see where the bosses are clearly just by looking. Last but not least, queue up for Gift of Flesh and kill all 3 bosses. This is one of the fastest ones of them all. Nothing really to note here other than just kill. This entire run should take 45 minutes to an hour maximum. If you do this route, it will keep the run within the hour mark. This route consists of 22 bosses and should yield over 6,000 gold for 45 minutes of your time. All the rest of the bosses take a bit too much time to complete, but if you are bored or have extra time, you could run them all. But I do highly suggest running the route I just went over. I spent quite a bit of time farming these on multiple different characters, figuring out which ones are best to run. I hope you guys enjoy this farm. It's some pretty quick gold, and you get some cool looking transmogs along the way. Next, we will be covering how to make gold on the auction house, selling transmogs, BOEs, and other items. After we go over this next section on how to make gold in the auction house, we will be going over more gold farms that can earn you a lot of gold, so make sure to keep watching. There are lots of different ways people make gold in the auction house, but in order to make anything you need to have something to sell, right? Some people just focus on selling large ticket items like high-end raid BOEs, or super rare items like hard to get mounts, or super rare transmog items. Then other people will literally post anything. When starting off in the auction house, you will want to build up an inventory. Let's say you have 0 gold and 0 inventory, and all you have is a level 70 character. Well, let's get farming then. Let's hit some dungeons and build up an inventory. Everything from here on out that you post on the auction house is 100% profit because you farmed it. We are going to farm and build up an inventory with 1,000 pieces. You might be thinking, Cloudy, 1,000 pieces? That's going to take forever. Well, I'm here to tell you that it won't. You can build up 100 items in just a few hours or less, and high quality items at that matter. It's just a matter of running the right dungeons and hitting some farm spots and in the correct order. You want to start with the dungeons that drop the most quantity to start building up an inventory. Once we have some quantity built up, we will focus more on quality. A lot of the transmog pieces are way overpriced. Sometimes you'll see a green sword on the auction house that doesn't even look cool with a TSM market value of 20,000 gold and a sell rate of 0.001. We all know that's never going to sell at that price, but don't get me wrong, if you post it over and over, eventually I'm sure it will sell. But if you drop the price to 2,000 instead of the market value of 20,000, I bet you it'll sell within 24 hours. I'm not telling you guys to completely tank the market with items, but with certain items, you will need to lower them in order to sell them, especially when we're talking about transmog items. Also, when you're first starting out, it does help to lower the price to get some quick gold. You will need to drop the price if you want to sell transmog items quickly. If you come across any rare items or higher value items, hold strong on the price and sell it slower. It all depends on the item, of course. Try not to tank the market on quality items. A lot of people will tell you to either undercut by 1 copper or not at all. If you're the last person to post something on the auction house, you do get the sale. This is definitely the way you want to do it, but like I was just saying, if the item will never sell at a certain price, then you'll need to drop it to a price that it will sell at. You might be thinking, how do I know if it'll sell at market value or not? Well, you need to do your research on every item you're selling. First, check the market value, compare the market value to the average daily sell rate. Items with a 0.001 daily sell rate are a lot harder to sell. I'm going to share a method with you guys to make gold quickly. It's not something you want to do long term, but when you're first starting out, it works well. I'm going to base this off a farm run that I did. I ran Razorfen Crawl 10 times and got 80 BOE items out of those 10 runs. The TSM market value of those items ranged from 40 gold all the way up to 173,000 gold, and a total value of over 400,000 gold. In order to make the full 400,000 on those items, it would take a few months of reposting to sell every item at max price. That is fine if you have a large inventory and plenty of gold saved up, but let's say we want gold now and we don't want to wait weeks or months for the gold. We take those 80 items and we sell the entire lot for a quarter of the price or less. My top item was Pyson's old greatsword with a market value of 173,000 gold and a regional market value of 147,000 gold. The sell rate is 0.002, which is pretty low. Also, if you take a look at the region sale average, it's only 11,000. What that means is my server, Mal'Ganis, has a market value of 173,000 gold. So I could sell it on my server slowly and get that price eventually, or I can post it for lower and get the gold much quicker. I will probably start it out at 50,000 gold and dropping it in price by 10,000 until it sells, and stopping at 10k as a bare minimum low price. Then I'll take every other item that I got from the farm and post them all for 100 to 500 500 gold, depending on the item. If we sold all other 79 items at an average of 300 gold, we would make almost 25,000, plus the rare item that I got will probably sell for 20k quickly, so that's 45,000 gold, and it only took me 30 minutes to get those 10 runs done. Of course, all 80 items are not going to sell, but if we post all of them for a few hundred gold, most likely we will sell most of them in just a few days, or maybe a week at most, versus a few months to sell at full price. It only took me 30 minutes to do all 10 runs, so any gold that I make, I am happy with for only 30 minutes of my time. What I suggest doing is pick a few items that are best, based on market value and sell rate, and post them at full price. All the rest just completely undercut like crazy. This will sell them fast. Build up some quick gold. Of course, this is just a suggestion for fast gold, and I absolutely do not suggest doing this long term. A lot of gold makers will be mad if you undercut like crazy. This is only a method you will want to do for the first week or so. After you build up 100,000 gold, or you have 500 plus items on the auction house, it's best not to really undercut and just be the last person to post. This is because if everyone does this method, then the market is completely ruined. So only do this to get started. Obviously, every item is different. If some clown just posted an item higher than market value, then obviously you can undercut it. Just try to follow the market value as best you can. If you're not sure the price of something, you can always look at the website called the Undermine Journal. I will have a link to it in the description below. Also look at regional value as well, because every server is so much different when it comes to a price of an item. The more you do it, the better you will be at figuring out prices for your items. Remember what I said about anything you farm is 100% profit. They're your items and you can post them at whatever you want. When you're deciding a price of an item, you need to determine if that price is accurate or not. In a lot of cases, TSM prices are fairly accurate, but as I said before, Transmog items seem to be inflated quite a bit depending on your server, of course. You can drop the prices to whatever you need to sell your items. If you have to repost over and over and you're not getting any sales, most likely you're posting too high or you don't have items people want, so go back out and farm some more. Obviously, the lower the price, the faster the item sells, but the less gold you make. Hold on tight to cool looking items that have a good sell rate. Any rare items do not sell for cheap. You can undercut as much as you want, but don't sell yourself short. In a lot of cases, you can get full price for most of your items, but it just takes a bit longer to sell. So once you have an inventory built up, that's when you want to start selling things at full price. In order to actually start moving some transmog items on the auction house, you will need to have at least 700 items posted or more. The more you have, the more that sell. You also need to be checking your auctions frequently to see if you've been undercut. Running cancel scans can be tiring to keep up with. Canceling auctions when you are undercut and reposting to be the top seller. It does work great if you have time to do that. Another technique is to keep farming and continue posting. Check your mailbox once a week. Don't open your mailbox for an entire week. Farm for a few hours per day and post everything you get. Of course, the more you farm, the more you're able to post. Let's talk about which dungeons you should farm first. I'm going to list off a handful of great starter dungeons. These dungeons drop a lot of BOEs, and you also have a chance of getting some very rare items as well. I'm going to go through each dungeon one by one, telling you how to farm it fast and efficient, and what to keep your eye open for while farming. Here's the list of starter dungeons: Zul'Farrak, Razorfen Crawl, Hellfire Ramparts, Marathon, and Blackrock Depths. These are just a few of my favorites personally. I will list every single dungeon that's worth farming and go into detail on them later in the video. For now, let's start with these select few. First dungeon on the list is Zul'Farrak. This dungeon is great, has a high BOE drop rate, and will fill up your bags quickly. Zul'Farrak is located on the north side of Tarnaris in Kalimdor. The best way to get here is to take the portal to Caverns of Time from Orgrimmar and fly over. This dungeon has tons of green items, and you can farm it very fast. There's also 12 different rare BOE blue items that drop from trash. I'm going to show you two different routes you can run. One is a full clear, and the other is a 3/4 clear. The 3/4 clear can be run in 3 minutes, which targets the majority of the mobs in the dungeon. You can run this route 10 times in about 35 to 40 minutes, but that will leave you with 20 minutes where you can't farm. So you can either head to a new farm or just run the other route, which is the 5-minute farm. You can run that route 10 times in an hour, no issue. In this dungeon, you just want to mount up and pull everything, and don't stop running until you've gathered up all the mobs. The mobs here won't reset as long as you don't jump onto a wall or do something weird. They are low level mobs, so you have to jiggle your character on top of them in order for them to aggro. But once a pack of them is chasing you, Most mobs in their path will aggro automatically. Just make sure you're not missing mobs. Gather up all the mobs and AoE them down, then reset and do it again. Next on the list, we have Razorfen Crawl, one of the best dungeons to fill up our auction house with. This dungeon is very fast and easy, and there are quite a bit of extremely rare BOE blue items that have a chance of dropping, with some of them worth up to 500k. As you see here on my screen, the blue items that drop from trash are worth a lot of gold. Just run forward killing everything. You cannot pull the entire dungeon in one pull though. Basically just kill as you go. It'll take more time to try to aggro them since they're so low they take a bit time to aggro. You will want to pull one room at a time so mobs don't reset. One thing to watch out for is the 2 tripwires you will find throughout the dungeon. Just walk around them. Also, don't bother killing the yellow mobs in this room, but you will want to kill the yellow frogs near the rare at the end of the dungeon, as they can drop BOEs. Also, keep your eyes open for treasure chests. Sometimes you'll find them unlocked and they can have BOEs inside of them. I suggest running this dungeon 10 times and then heading to a new dungeon or farm. Next up, we have Hellfire Ramparts, located in Hellfire Peninsula in the Outlands. This dungeon is super fast and drops a lot of green BOEs. In this dungeon, you can do the entire run in just 2 pulls. When you run inside the dungeon, kill the couple guys on the bridge, then from here, gather up all the rest of the mobs on the first floor. After you clear the first floor, run upstairs and gather up all the mobs on the main platform upstairs. Don't bother running down the 2 hallways to get the 1 or 2 guys that are pretty far away. Also, if you're doing it on heroic, don't kill the bosses. Otherwise, you'll be locked out for the day. The first boss just pats back and forth on the first floor, and he can easily be skipped. If you have it set to normal, then you can kill the boss for vendor gold, but you won't get more than a few gold out of it. There's actually a good amount of BOEs in here that can sell for a good chunk if you want to wait weeks for them to sell, or you can just dump them for quick gold. There's not really any cool looking transmogs in this dungeon, so if you want to sell these items fast, you will need to drop the price. Overall, this dungeon can be cleared in 2 to 3 minutes flat. You can get 10 runs in 30 minutes no problem. This is a great dungeon to build up some inventory. But after you do your 10 runs, you will need to find something to do for the next half an hour while your instances reset. You won't be able to do a dungeon farm since we can only do 10 instances per hour. As a gold farmer, we need to make sure we're being productive during downtime. I do have another great farm in Hellfire Peninsula that I will be sharing with you guys towards the end of this video that you can do for that half an hour of downtime. But for now, we're going to head to our next dungeon. Next up, we have Addons, located in Kalimdor and Desolace. The best way to get here is to fly over from Orgrimmar. With dragon riding, it only takes 1:30 to get here. This is definitely one of the best vanilla dungeons for filling your auction house with greens. Also, you get a lot of herbs that will almost instantly sell in the auction house. Once you get to Desolace and you're getting close to the dungeon, you will notice that it's a bit of a hike to actually get to the dungeon entrance. There are actually 3 different entrances to this dungeon. A main entrance, a second entrance, and a center of dungeon entrance. As you see on my screen, I marked the main entrance for you. Head to this entrance. Once inside, open your map and look for the other entrance. You will see the other entrance on the other side of the dungeon. The best way to farm this dungeon is to run and aggro all the mobs from one side to the other. Once you're at the other side, then kill everything you pulled. Then reset and run back the way you came. You just run between the 2 entrances farming that route. This is only half the dungeon though, and we won't be farming the backside. This route can be done in about 6 to 7 minutes depending on how fast you are. Also, you can ignore the bosses to speed it up just a bit. You only get 3 to 4 gold from killing each boss. Ideally, we want to keep our runs at 6 minutes, so we can do 10 runs in an hour. While farming this dungeon, sometimes you'll get rooted. If that happens, just try to be faster next time to stay ahead of the pack. But if it does become a problem, you can just stop and kill the mobs and then continue. When you get to the end of your route, just line of sight the ads so they'll all run to you. It does take 30 seconds or so for all the ads to come. Overall, this is a great dungeon to farm green BOEs. Definitely worth your time to farm this dungeon when starting out. Also, I don't recommend farming the backside as there's a lot of running around when you get to that section. I would just stick to the other route we talked about. Moving on to our next dungeon, Blackrock Depths. Blackrock Depths is located in Eastern Kingdoms, inside of Blackrock Mountain in the Burning Steppes. The best way to get here is to take the portal from Valdrakken to Badlands and fly over. When you get to Blackrock Mountain, head inside. Once you're inside of Blackrock Mountain, if you open your map to look for the dungeon entrance, you won't see it. Head to the center and go down the chain. Continue on and you'll eventually find the dungeon entrance. This dungeon has the most mobs out of any vanilla dungeon there is. There are a handful of different routes in this dungeon, and to be honest, you can just make your own, but I'm going to show you 2 different routes that work for me. Just to note, Blackrock Depths has multiple different dungeon maps depending on where you are. It's a very large dungeon and it can be kinda confusing as well. Just get in there and run it a few times and you'll learn it pretty fast. This is another dungeon where you aggro everything and kill at the end. Mobs won't reset in here. The first route I'm going to be sharing with you guys is a 6-minute run, give or take. At the end of this route, we will be opening relic coffer chests in search of a gray item called Dark Iron Baby Booties. They are used to obtain a pet in Shadowlands, and these gray boots will sell on the auction house for 10,000 gold or so. When you run into the dungeon, just run and aggro everything. This is the route that I use. I basically pull every single mob until I get to this room here, where the 4 big golems are. Then I kill all the mobs. This room is called the Black Vault. There are 12 coffer chests in this room that you can open, with keys that you acquire from killing adds while inside of the dungeon. After you kill the mobs, open all the chests and reset. That is route number 1. It's considered the coffer chest route. Since this route ends in the middle of the dungeon, it's a pain in the ass to reset quickly. But you can make a custom group and then on your name portrait, right click and leave the group. After 1 minute, you will be ported to the entrance of the dungeon. If you time it just right, you can port out of the dungeon as you finish opening the chests. Route number 2 is a 9-minute run. You just pull the entire dungeon, and at the end of the route, you end up back at the entrance of the dungeon, so it's pretty convenient. If you're pretty fast, you can do it in 6 to 7 minutes if you skip a few rooms. The best way to learn a route for this dungeon is just to get in here and do it yourself, like I said before. It's super easy once you learn it. There are quite a bit of different green transmog sets that drop in this dungeon as well. So those are the 5 starter dungeons I recommend you guys start off with. Next, we are going to talk about a handful of miscellaneous farms around the world that you can do that are still profitable. The first farm that we have is the Syphilis farm. This farm is super addicting. When I'm here farming, I can't seem to stop. It's a lot of fun doing this farm on a druid because the mobs respawn so fast and you're non-stop killing one guy at a time for hours. Moonfire after moonfire after moonfire. I just can't get enough of this farm. I love doing this farm. It's fun, it's great, it's fast paced, there's tons of loot, your bags fill up quickly. The open world farm in Syphilis is a great spot for transmog farming because here drop some of the most expensive sets from vanilla WoW. The Jade set, the Gloria set, and numerous other sets as well. But the most sought after item from this farm is the notorious Tibu's Blazing Longsword, worth upwards of 500,000 gold. The best way to do this farm is in a group, of course, and preferably on a druid with a Moonfire macro you can just spam to kill the mobs. But you can 100% do this farm solo. Just run around and kill and loot. There are 3 different camps where you can do this farm, but you really only need to stay at one because the mobs hyperspawn. Also, make sure you are in the correct time. To change time to the old Syphilis, you can use the NPC called Zidormi, who is located near Valor's Rest. Just to note, the chances of getting Tibu's longsword is very low, but if you manage to get your hands on one, then it's definitely a big payday for you. But there are plenty of other items that drop here as well. You will fill your bags up fairly quickly here. Next farm we have is our herbalism farm. This farm is actually quite great. It does require a bit of prep in order to do it properly. This is the Xanthid farm, located in Nazjatar. To get to Nazjatar, just take the portal in Dazar lore in Zuldazar. If you don't have Nazjatar unlocked, then you will need to speak to Nathanos or Gen Greymane and accept the quest Send the Fleet. Just Google it and there are many guides on this topic on how to unlock Nazjatar. This farm yields between 100 to 150 gold per minute if done properly. Also, you get your gold the same day because Xanthid sells the same day you post it. All you do is fly around and farm Xanthid. Super easy and there's little to no competition here, so it's pretty great. But in order for you to farm it efficiently, you need to have rank 3 Xanthid. First, you will need to learn BFA Herbalism. Even if you have Dragonflight Herbalism, you will still need to learn BFA Herbalism. You can pick it up from the herbalist in the main town in Nazjatar. If you don't see the NPCs, then you'll have to do the first few intro quests at Nazjatar to see the NPCs. When you pick up BFA Herbalism, you need to fly around and get your Herbalism skill up to 140, then you can learn rank 1 of Xanthid. Once you have rank 1 of Xanthid, you can now get rank 2. You can get rank 2 from the Carnivorous Lasher. To summon this rare, you have to loot a germinating seed from the mobs in Nazjatar. It's a random drop. It's a 10% drop chance to get the rank 2 pattern from the rare, but you can summon him pretty often, so it's not that bad. Rank 3 is from a quest item that drops from gathering Xanthid, and it drops pretty quickly after you get rank 2. Once you have rank 3, you will be able to gather a lot more Xanthid quickly. If you don't have rank 3, it's really not worth the time to do this farm. It took me about 2 to 3 hours in total to get this done, but it's totally worth it though to have this farm available for some extra gold. This is the best route for farming the Xanthid. You can just copy and paste this route if you need to. Next farm we have is the Fel Iron Ore farm in Hellfire Peninsula in the Outlands. This farm is similar to the Xanthid farm in terms of how much gold you can make. Roughly 120 gold per minute, depending on what the price of Fel Iron is on the auction house at the time. But lately it's been pretty solid. This farm requires no prep beforehand. You just simply have to fly around Hellfire Peninsula and mine Fel Iron ore. One thing you will need to have is the add-on Gathermate 2 and Gathermate data. This will allow you to import all of the Fel Iron nodes in Hellfire Peninsula. Otherwise, you will waste a lot of time flying around to areas that don't have ore. It's definitely a must to have those 2 add-ons in order to efficiently do this farm. The best route, in my opinion, is basically flying around the edges of the zone. I use the add-on routes to make a good path for myself while searching for nodes. It just makes it easier to see where I am going. I will have a link to all 3 add-ons in the description below. While you're mining the Fel Iron ore, you also get motes of fire and motes of earth, which sell pretty decently on the auction house. Overall, this is another good farm. You can do this farm while you're waiting for your instances to reset if you're out farming Hellfire Ramparts. Next up, we have a class-specific farm. This is a rogue-only farm. This farm is just flying around different expansions opening treasure chests. But let me tell you, this farm is amazing. You will need to have Gathermate 2 and Gathermate data to import the chest locations. The Burning Crusade and Northrend are great places to go for this farm. Just fly around to each node on the map and swoop down when one pops up. Every chest you find will have a blue BOE inside of it. After an hour or 2 of doing this farm, I had an entire bag full of blue BOEs. There are a lot of chests if you fly across the entire map of the Burning Crusade and Northrend. A lot of the BOEs will only sell for a few thousand gold, but then some of them are worth a lot more. I definitely recommend doing this farm if you have a rogue. Overall, this is a really great farm. I spent a few weeks making this video, and I have a lot more farms I want to share with you guys. But because of the length of this video, I am going to make a second video. Part 2 of this gold guide will be coming soon. I hope this video helps you guys in your gold making journey, and I will be continuing to make more gold making videos in the near future as well. Part 2 will consist of more farms, a full list of all dungeons that are worthy of farming, and more tips for making gold in the auction house. Thanks for watching guys, Cloudy Haze out.
I just need to know what's on your mind. Tell me what you need and you can call my name, I'll be around. Dum da da, dum dum da da, dum dum da da, dum dum the sky is falling. Dum dum da da, dum dum da da, dum dum da da. That will keep you safe.